Yeah, for sure. I believe my strategy changes when I'm fishing dark water versus clear water, just because they fish a lot different. You know, a lot of times clear water fish will have a tendency to be deeper. And in your darker stained water, fish will have a tendency to be shallow. Not always, but as a rule of thumb, when I'm gonna approach a stained or dark water lake, I won't be afraid to go up shallower. You know, where if I'm fishing a gin clear lake, you can't be afraid to fish down in 50, 40 feet of water. It's kind of that same opposite. So I'm not saying they won't be deep in stained water, but me as a rule of thumb, boy, if you're gonna fish stained water, you know, take that 4 to 20 foot range, and if you've got a crystal clear lake, you know, take that 10 to 40 foot range and you know, and just work those areas as a rule of thumb for me.
So I gotta divide that up. If I'm in clear, deep water situations, it doesn't change too much. Like if we have an overcast day in deep clear water, I kind of just treat it like mildly dirty water, right? But if it's high sun, 6 inches of ice, no snow, you kind of got to treat it, you know, then I'll go natural colors, things like that. On a day like that, high sun, 6 inches of ice, no snow on the lax, I'm usually not busting out pink UV. Then I'm going toward my more natural colors. So shallow then, shallow dingy water is kind of opposite. I will start with brighter stuff, louder stuff, you know, things like that. Deeper clear situations on bluebird day, I'll tend to forget the rattles, get more flash, you know, trade the flash for the rattle. Clear shallow bodies of water, things like, you know, the tungsten flies are really good, buggy type lure, plastics can go. I think that's actually a good point. I think a lot of people on really gin clear water, they'll focus more on their lure, and if they already have a really natural presentation and they're using like 6-pound test line to target bluegills, you're probably has less to do with your lure than them going, what is this guy doing? Like, he's using rope, you know?
Sometimes you can find dirty water in a clear water lake, especially early in the season like this, when you get a big wind and the lake breaks up and it blows the ice, and then it piles up somewhere. You get all these jagged ice. You don't even like walking on it, but the water also gets dirty under there because it starts circulating in that same spot, and you'll find this dirty water where the ice is, you know, broken up, and it's, I mean, people stay away from it because, you know, your fish house doesn't pull well through there, and it's hard to drill holes, but the fish will be in that because the water is dirtier, and that's where the panfish are hiding from the pike, is in the dirty water.
Clear water is tougher than most people give it credit for. And to tell you the truth, unless I need to fish clear water, we're at a destination and everything's clear, I try to avoid it. I think a lot of people understand that from an open water perspective. Oh, it's clear water, you know, the fish aren't gonna bite till at night or right at dark. In ice, or in ice fishing, it's often the very same case. And I think less and less people really understand that when it comes to ice fishing. With murky water, as far as my strategy, I'm all about fishing quick, fast, loud. If I can catch the dumb ones, hey, the easy fish are the ones I'm after. I don't need to feel great about fooling the finickiest fish in the land. I'm about covering water and catching the active fish. So murky is what I prefer when I can fish it.
The thing about dirty water is you can get away with more, in the sense that you can have longer windows during the day, bright sun, 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you can get away with more. A lot of times we're using louder baits, rattles, brighter colors, bigger profiles. We can use heavier line. A lot of times it's just a matter of not only finding fish, but fish so the fish can find you, and that's the challenge in some really turbid, dirty water at times. At the same time, you get clear water, and sometimes it's tighter windows. It might be sunrise, sunset. You might not be able to get away with using heavier line. You have to sometimes use a smaller presentation, smaller profile, more subtle profile, and you might have to use lighter line. And so that's probably the big thing. Sometimes with clear water, typically you're going to have harder fishing, but at the same time, and sometimes you might start out on one lake where it's clear in the mornings, and then the sun gets a little higher, and then you go to a stained lake, and then you end it, you know, and sometimes you kind of dictate your strategy, or sometimes if it's really foggy, for example, low ceiling clouds, a lot of times I'll have a tendency to go shallow and I'll fish clear water, because a lot of times I have better luck that way. I can catch fish through the day, whereas if it's really sunny, high ceiling, you know, I might avoid some of those lakes. And so sometimes the weather dictates my strategy too, as far as how to fish or when to fish one versus the other.
Well, I think the biggest thing that happens is in clear water, you got to be up early and you got to stay out late. Clear water, especially in the winter, just tends like the fish will move in those early morning situations. And what's probably making them more active than anything is just the fact that when it's time to move, they're moving around. And so you can sit in a spot and let them come to you. When you get that tannicky water, like up at Lake of the Woods or something, they kind of move around. They slow down during the day, but they mill around. So again, you don't have to move. In clear water during the day, a lot of times what you have to do is move around to hope you kind of land on one or two fish. Quick catch those two and then realize there's probably not going to be more that mill into you. You're going to have to move again and move again. So a lot of moving during clear water. In clear water situations, I probably move more, trying to just land on a couple fish that are just laying there not really wanting to eat, but then I fire them up, but then knowing that there's not going to be more filtering in, so move to the next pod.
You know, on Mille Lacs, it's more structure-driven fish. You know, you're primarily fishing structure. The water's clear, so you've got a lot of ciscos that'll be up high in the water column. You know, the fish can see things from afar, so I can get away with fishing 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 feet off the bottom. I mean, I've seen fish right up underneath the ice. And fish see baits. As your bait's falling to the bottom, you'll see fish come up and, you know, come into the screen and dart up towards the bait. Yeah, in clear water you can get away with, you know, fishing flashier, smaller baits, whereas, you know, in that stained water I like more of those glow patterns, some of those larger profile baits, something that they can feel with their lateral line and they're going to come in and strike, whereas clear, you know, it's more of a visual thing. But also there's advantages and disadvantages of clear versus stained. You know, in clear water, they see the line. You know, line visibility is a big thing. I'll take customers out on the ice and one will have braid tied direct to a presentation, the other won't. The one that's not using the braid tied direct is catching way more fish, and that's the fish see that line, you know. Where, you know, if you're in that stained water, you can get away with it. They're not line shy, they're not seeing that line. They're just, you know, coming into that presentation because they feel it, you know. So it seems like a lot of these shallower stained lakes that you're chasing walleyes are more basin type of situations. So you're not loaded up on a point or an inside turn or something like that. It's more basin type of fishing. You're looking for schools of bait fish out in that basin. You know, you're staying on the move until you find, you know, the areas of the basin they're fishing versus the spot on a clear glacial lake like Mille Lacs.
Well, I think through it a little bit. I don't fish deeper in water that has a little more color to it, in dirty water. I tend to be a little bit more shallow. And when I'm fishing dirty water, I like to use baits that some of them even glow, but they've got a rattle or they got noise, they got some type of vibration in them. You know, there's a lot of different baits now, even these, I always call them the chubby baits, that have a rattle inside of them, so when you're lifting them and dropping them, they shimmer and they have sound to them. But sometimes I like, you know, spoons that have a rattle in it too. And I don't think color is that important in dark water. I think the sound is more effective. But I also like to tip the minnows, or tip the spoon with a minnow head. Sometimes a full-bodied shiner, a small one, will work really good. You hook it in the head. So those are things, you know, between noise and smell in dark water. Clear water, I stay with a lot of silvers and a little touch of gold, but not so much. Blues and silvers are real popular with me. Sometimes I still like rattles. If people understand that just because the water is dirty or clear, if it's underneath the ice, it's all dark water. You know, there's no such thing as the water is clear down below. In like 20 feet of water, it's dark. Because I mean, you sit there, you can't see down there, so it's dark water.
The stained fish, I'm going to run a flasher and just chase them around the edge. There's no weeds to hold them usually, so I'm going to do a lot of moving, trying to stay on them. I'll probably swing my deucer. If I see the screen light up and I'm catching a couple and then they start to like diminish off the screen, I know they're leaving, so I'll pick up the deucer and like swing it and try and find which way they're swimming to. So if it blinks every time it goes to my right as I swing it, I know the school is swimming to the right, and I'll just walk over. You've seen me do it on video, and I'll just walk over and hop in front of them and try and stay on that school with the flasher that way, just swing it around.
Dirty water, I'm drilling a lot more holes because of the fact that I think that it's harder to get fish to move or to call fish a distance. Noise, rattles, and color make a big difference in dark water. Where clear water, I think you can grab a fish's attention further away with a little bit of flash. So I tend to spend more time drilling holes and trying to find the spot on dark water, where clear water, I'm a little bit more forgiving and thinking that I'm going to get the fish to move.
When you're fishing walleyes or anything in clear water, the fish know that lure is coming down. If you're in 10 feet or less, they see it under the ice. In 20 feet, they see it when it drops after a few feet. So I fish from the bottom of the ice down in clear water. But in dark water, you can get closer to them. And I use cameras, the AquaView camera, so I can see them up close. And then with my Helix, I can keep an eye on what's going on. But I always fish from a distance to them. And if they're real aggressive, then you drop down into them. But everybody's dropping tungsten on fish and throwing meteorites down on them. I'm more of a drop it down slow and tease them, and then when you get there, they hammer it. And the same with walleyes. Jigging, just slight movements using quality bait, even on a hook, or even a summertime jig, like a Fireball long shank jig with a full shiner. They're not going to say, no, that's a summer bait. They're going to grab that thing and chow on it. But I use live bait, dead sticks, and in dark water, you can get by with all kinds of different odd colors, but in clear water, you'd be surprised. I always say that throw the kitchen sink at them, and you'll be surprised no matter how much you fish or what makes a fish react.
And if you've got a body of water with, say, 6 inches to a foot of visibility, that's going to impact the deep weed line. It might be 5, 6, 7 feet. Whereas you got a clear water lake with something maybe 18, 20 feet of visibility, that deep weed line is going to be out at 20, 25 feet. And that weed line is important in the summer, and it can be important in the winter. So yeah, I use, if it's dark water, I fish shallower. If it's clearer, I fish deeper. And then time of day can be affected too. I mean, a lot of times the dark water lakes are great daytime bites, and the clear water lakes are better on the shoulders or the nighttime. But it's surprising, there's times when there's good night bites on some of the dark water lakes. So it's amazing that you could have a body of water on one side of the road and one on the other, and they fish completely differently. So it really comes down to what you know about the particular lake, and then let the lake tell you what to do.